Yeah. I'm gonna hit record.
Awesome.
Alright. Good? Yeah. Okay. Alright. This is an oral history interview on the campus of Oklahoma City University as part of the Uptown 23rd Oral History Project. Today is Wednesday, April 13th, 2016. My name is Elizabeth Hayworth. My team and I are interviewing Dyan Shaw. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me here. I'm so excited to be here.
Oh, okay. Alright, so the first question is, what is your specific relationship to 23rd Street?
Well, I was born downtown at St. Anthony's Hospital, and when I came home from the hospital, I lived in Uptown till I was about 4 years old. My grandfather had his law office on the corner of 23rd and Lee, and behind he had built these garage apartments for people to rent, and so my parents and my sister and I lived in one of those little garage apartments. And I moved away at about 4 years old, came back when I was probably 7, and lived in a house behind where I was born till I was a senior in high school. So I'm in that area a long time.
Okay. The second question is, how do current OCU students benefit from the changes on 23rd?
I think that it's a safer area and that there's more things to do. When I grew up down there, the area was, this would be back in the early 60s, the area was still, you know, a good area. There was high-end shopping down there on 23rd Street. As the years went on and it progressed into the 70s and such, the neighborhood started to come down a little bit, and a lot of those stores moved out, moved into shopping malls probably at that point in time. And not a lot really going on down there, and so it really didn't benefit the students here. Now there are restaurants, there is shopping down there, there's pizza and places to get out on the rooftop patio and that sort of thing. So, and I think it has improved and gotten a lot safer down there. I still think that there's going to be some issues that they're going to need to address. I've been down there, like I said, been painting the house with my husband on the corner of 23rd and Lee, 630 Northwest 23rd Street. It's right catty corner from Church's Chicken, and I don't know if you've seen the house. It's the only house standing. It's right on the corner. But we've been working down there, and the thing that I feel that they're going to need to address is they need to slow the traffic down on 23rd Street. It's not quite pedestrian friendly enough. Even I think there was an article written in the newspaper a few weeks back that the Tower Theater people have said the same thing. When I grew up down there, there was stoplights at every intersection. And back when it started to come down, the area started to go down, they took those stoplights out for some reason. I don't know if they just felt like they didn't have the flow of traffic, or, but it's time that they look at that and maybe put that back in there so that people can be a lot safer, because there is a lot of action going on down there. I mean, there's buses are stopping on either side, which is great. The mass transit, you know, stopping on either side of the street every 30 minutes. So it's a good thing. I see a lot of foot traffic, a lot of people just walking and cutting through the neighborhood there. And they just need to try to make it a little bit more pedestrian friendly.
Right. And what have you seen change in the Paseo, and what have you noticed change since you and your husband moved your business here?
Well, the business isn't actually down there yet, but again, I think the upgrade of the situation in the area. Paseo also had a decline at one time. Back in the 60s, the hippies took over down there. It was rumored that people were selling marijuana out of a Mother's Rock Shop, which is a head shop that was down there. They had psychedelic posters with the black light posters and all of that good stuff, and you could buy incense and, you know, macrame things. Very, very 60s, and very artful too. Local artists did make things and have them there at Mother's Rock Shop. But you could also buy rolling papers and paraphernalia and that kind of stuff. But the rumor of them selling marijuana in that store was just not true. One time during the Vietnam War, I can remember this clearly, because we always drove down Paseo, because I grew up in the uptown area, but my grandparents were on the corner of 28th and Walker, which is just catty-cornered from Sost, house on the corner. So we had a close relationship with the grandparents, so we were back and forth there. My mother was a single mother, and so they helped raise me and my sister some. But they had this big protest, or it was an overnight thing, and I don't know, somebody came in and the hippies wrote mayonnaise in the street in great big white letters. But it wasn't spelled like mayonnaise, it was mayonnaise. And it was a reference to Chairman Mao. And at that time, that was during the war of Vietnam. And the communist, he was the communist that was calling all the shots, or that, you know, my history's not so great in some of those areas, but it was a big news story. Mm-hmm. Then there were several bars down there that got pretty crazy, I think. I was not at that age, I was a lot younger, but there were a lot of places. They had a place down there called Filthy McNasty's, and then my friend opened up a bar, his name is Mark Falk, he opened up a bar, and I was old enough to get in at that time. It was called the Paseo Junction, and he supported live music and local music. And when I was a little girl, there was a cleaners there, where you could take your clothes to get cleaned, and my grandmother used that. And I remember once being in, and I think it might be the same place where, is it Picasso's now, the restaurant bar down there? It was a little store. Like, you know, you could go in there on a hot summer day and you could get a bottle of pop, you know, leave your 5-cent deposit for the bottle, because that you could collect those bottles later and sell them back and get money back in those days. But it was just like a little convenience store kind of thing in there. Again, at that time, a lot of things had gone kind of under. There wasn't a lot of stuff that was still open down there. They did have a beauty school down there on the corner, just, you know, like, so they could practice on your hair. And my grandmother, we had our hair done down there many, many times. The students would do our hair and cuts, and it was just a huge place. This building was, where they had this rambling beauty school, Paul's Beauty College.
Right. And what do you think should be done about the crime and or homeless issue here in OKC?
I don't know what the answer is to that specifically. Because I do notice, again, I'll say I've been hanging out down there sometimes 6 to 8 hours a day, or a time that we go down there. And we even still, at our property on the corner, we've had windows broken out twice within the last 6 months. There's not really anything in there to steal, but they certainly want to get in there and look. And it's crazy to me that this is happening, because it's right on the corner, and now we have all of this activity down there with the Drake and Big Truck Tacos and all of this kind of stuff. And it's like, you know, for years it didn't happen. We didn't have anybody breaking in, and then suddenly in the last, 6 months, we've got, 2 different times they're shattering windows, and that's a problem, So I'm not really sure who would be doing that. Is it the new people, or is it the other people still moving through the neighborhood? There is the plasma center is on the corner there. I don't know if you're familiar with that. I think we try to be good neighbors with them. My uncle, who is the patriarch of the family at this point in time and handles all the business in our family, he is the one that takes care of the house there. And he really tries really hard to get along with them across the street. But you just can't, something happens, the dumpster gets dumped, and then suddenly their materials are blowing over in the yard, and there's a lot of trash. but they really do try to have a good relationship. I've spoken to several people that work there at the Plasma Center as we've been over there, and they're all very nice and want to try to help out, want to try to make sure, everything is picked up and cleaned up. I don't know about the homelessness. The thing that I can speak to right now is that I've noticed since that city ordinance went into effect, where they, and it may have been in early part of February or January, they can no longer be on the center media because it's a safety issue. And so I've really not seen, I live in the 39th and May area, and there's a big intersection there with a highway that goes across, and they were there all the time, panhandling. They never brought the curbside that far northwest, the publication. Now it's down here, I see it on 23rd and Penn here, and I even did see some curbside people the other day. They weren't in the middle of the media, but they were. And so they are still trying to make a go of that. But I think that is a good idea, is the publication and trying to help them, to help themselves. But maybe it needs to be a little bit more expanded into some other neighborhoods. I mean, even at Western and Memorial Road, which is very far northwest, there used to be a lot of panhandling going on out there. I don't really go over there that much anymore. It's like out of my little island, and so I don't travel over there much doing that. But I think that's a good start. But like I said, I just really can't say what can be done about the homelessness. Just try to, everybody try to be supportive of each other and try to help your brother out. And we've been hanging around down there. We haven't had any problem with any of the neighborhood people. We've had, one guy asked me if I had money for bus fare, but it wasn't a problem, it wasn't threatening or anything kind of like that. So just try to get along, and I would hate to see people in that area get pushed out because of the new growth down there. Oftentimes that happens, and then those people are displaced because the city or the neighborhood association or whoever, they just want it for themselves, and they don't want to share it with the people that were there originally, so my hope would be that they could work together and maybe come up with some ways that they could curb that problem.
Okay. What do you think, if anyone, is suffering from the changes occurring on 23rd, the Plaza, and Paseo?
I think, especially on the Plaza, I had some experience on the Plaza too. I had a little antique booth shop down there in a store that was next to Bad Granny's. It was like Bad Granny's. And so I had that for like 2 years down there. So, and as that thing has become more and more the second Friday of the month, and people in the neighborhood have suffered because there's a parking issue. And that seems to kind of always be key, but you can't even hardly drive up and down the street that just runs, like 17th Street, that runs just north of 16th, and it seems like everybody stays north of 16th. I don't know if there's people that go to the south of 16th, because that's a little bit different area. If you've been down there, it changes pretty quickly if you walk south. But I know the people on the north side in Gatewood area, because that's a historical neighborhood there. They've had trouble getting in and out of their driveways, and they've grown to resent it. Paseo, I think, there are some places to park down there a little bit more than 16th Street, because there's a couple of vacant lots down there. People still do park in the neighborhood, but I think it's not as new as the Plaza issue as far as the parking goes, and it's less strained somehow. I don't think the neighbors around there in the Paseo area are as upset about the parking. 23rd Street probably is going to have some parking issues. I know the tower has a nice big lot straight across from them, and they haven't really started doing any events yet, so it hasn't become the problem. And down the street a little bit more where Cuppy and Joe's and some of those little places are in those little bungalows along there. I think there's some places in the back to park, but I can see that the traffic down there is, because I've gone out, to get lunch, for the people and the folks, my husband and the friends that are painting the house there, and so it's like, you're on a side street and you're dodging parked cars and traffic, so it is kind of that way. I made the way up to the Taco Bell via 22nd Street, and yeah, there was cars everywhere, and in the same way going back, and you just have to be so aware. And again, I think that comes with trying to slow the traffic down a little bit, make it a little bit more friendly. But I think time will tell. It's still pretty new. Uptown is still pretty new as far as it becoming this, new uprising of things as the Paseo and the Plaza. So,
on a related note, what do you see in Uptown 23rd's and OKC's future?
I think the partnership between the Oklahoma City Health Department and the Open Streets campaign is a really good start. That sadly I had to miss that a couple of weekends ago. I don't know if anybody got to go, but I had been to the event twice before. I went to the first event, and each time there's just more and more people. And so I think that it's attracted to people, especially in that area. I saw a lot of families when I went, and they were, every color of the rainbow. And it wasn't just, somebody trying to grab this and this is ours. They were everything, very multicultural, riding bicycles, painting a chalk on the, sidewalk chalk, playing games, doing Zumba. I did Zumba down there, I think, one year when I went. And so I think it's real important to the families. And there's a lot of young families right in that area. There's a grade school there. And so there's a lot of families that are that age, and I think that that's a good start in a partnership with Oklahoma City. And just try not to run over, the ones that are standing there and maybe being the innocent bystander, because now somebody's brought some money in there and they're breathing some life into it. And it's a good thing, but you just have to watch out for it and not hurt the people that were, kind of already there.
I have one. So you were saying that Paseo kind of went downhill. Why did your grandparents, why did they stay there if it was?
They eventually left, but it wasn't until they got older, and here's the reason I think they stayed there, is because we were still there too. It was just a little like, from our house down 23rd Street, up Walker, and boom, to my grandparents' house. My grandfather also, this house I keep referring to at 630 Northwest 23rd, was my grandfather's law office. And so he had his law office in there. One side of it is a duplex. Well, it's two, and he had his office on one side. And then there was somebody living, and he was taking care of this rental property down there. There were 2 garage apartments at one time, and then like about 3 efficiency apartments. My grandfather built those apartments back in the 40s, and that was a time when people started needing a little efficiency apartment, the culture, not only the culture, but just the whole shape of things started to change. It was after the war. There were people that didn't need a big house because they didn't have a family. It's like this one guy, he just needs an efficiency, and that's what it was. There was a little accordion door, just kind of like this one we're seeing here, that you would open up, and there's the sink, and and the little tiny stove would be right there, and then the little refrigerator under there, and there'd be a bathroom, and you would sleep in that other room, with everything. And he furnished every apartment. Furnished apartments were, that was hot back in those days. People wanted, if they were going to move into an apartment, they wanted it furnished because they didn't have anything, I guess. But it was very popular at that time. So he had about 6 units down there that he was still taking care of and renting out. And they really didn't start to leave until he wasn't as active anymore, going down there to his office every day. And they eventually moved into a condominium with a small yard that they didn't have to worry about because of their age, you know, up in northwest Oklahoma City. And I think that's why they stayed, because they had a lot invested down there. And, you know, whenever there was any kind of a problem, if there was a vandalism problem, my grandfather always took care of it and had a good attitude about it and, you know, fixed it. So, and there was shopping down there. My grandmother went to the grocery store. There was a grocery store down there. Sadly, there's not anymore, but there was. We had a VZ Drug on the corner of 23rd and Walker. I spent my days in the summer, along with friends in the neighborhood, walking down to the TG&Y, which was like a Family Dollar or something. And they had penny candy, which doesn't exist anymore. But they did, and it was like, you know, all out there in different baskets. And so, heck, you know, if you had 10 or 12 cents, you had 10 or 12 pieces of candy. And you could get that licorice and, you know, the red and the black licorice, and then you could get the malted milk balls and, you know, just everything. And so that was the highlight, to be able to walk down there and to get penny candy. There were several clothing stores down there, and kind of high-end. One was called Streets. It was where Planned Parenthood is now. It later changed from Streets to Rothschild's, which was very upscale as well. And then where the Drake is now, I don't know if you guys have been in there, but the new big long block that they just finished, that was a store. It was a children's store. It was very high-end. It was called Catherine Lives. My grandmother worked there, so I was lucky enough to have her work there, and she got some kind of a discount. So we were very, you know, we were nicely dressed children at that time. So there was a lot going on, and VZ Drug on the corner, and like grocery shopping, and it was a nice area. And then a little restaurant, and then just things started changing. I hope I didn't get off track on that.
No, you're fine. I think you mentioned earlier, or it was mentioned earlier, that you and your husband were looking to start a business in Uptown.
Yes, and that would be in this house that belongs to my family.
Oh, okay.
At 630 Northwest 23rd, the old grandfather's office. We would love to make that into a music venue place to support local art and local music. My sister calls it what is she calling it? The music Art Bistro, I think. You know, is kind of her ideal. She's a visual artist and as well as a musician, and she lives in Austin. But she used to be the director of the individual artists here in Oklahoma City back in the 80s. So she knows about how to pull a show together, and let's get some local artists and let's have, you know, an art opening, an art gallery. Just another sort of little spill and expansion from like Paseo. But to make it very simple, we don't want to do anything very complicated. We would love to take the house as it is, you know, barring a few little issues that are going to come along, and there's probably going to be a lot. The house is over 100 years old. But we'd love to open it up and make a little stage there, and maybe serve some soup and sandwich, and very simple food, nothing real complicated, but just something that would help support the music venue, because being in the music business, we found usually doesn't pay very great for the owner. We always tried to make sure that the musicians got something, and we tried to feed them and you know, make sure that, you know, they got their merchandise sold and that sort of thing. But it's probably, honestly, and I hate to say this because I love my husband for doing it as long as he did, 2.5 years, but I think that it just broke us. And people stopped vaping as much with this, you know, I don't know what happened with that, but that business side of it really went down. And everybody rallied around. We have a lot of support, and we have a lot of people who give ideas. But it's just really hard unless you have something else, like take the pump or some of the other places down there. They've got food, and everybody wants to eat. So if we could get something like that, that would help us to keep us going while we're supporting local musicians and artists. That's kind of what we'd like to do.
Okay, why did you decide on opening it up there?
Well, several reasons. For one thing, it is a new and upcoming place, and the other reason is my family owns the house. And everybody wants this for us. My uncle is a little bit skeptical. He's 84, and he's always kind of run the business end of things for the family. And he's just very slow in moving as far as, you know, we're like, hey, let us come on in, you know, and he's like, no, wait, you know. And but his kids, his wife, my mother